For a year and a half, I dedicated myself to crafting a revolutionary cybersecurity system, one that could foresee and thwart attacks before they materialized. Titan Tech appeared to be the ideal environment to realize this vision, well-funded, innovative, and brimming with the necessary resources. However, I was unaware that CEO Brandon Holt had an entirely different agenda: to wait until my project was nearly finished and then appropriate it for himself. I am Louis, and until yesterday, I held the position of lead AI architect at Titan Tech, having left a secure, lucrative job to pursue this dream. Microsoft is set to partner with this promising startup, bringing along years of expertise and a vision that has the potential to transform the cybersecurity landscape. My creation, Sentinel Shield, draws inspiration from the ever-vigilant guardians of mythology. It is designed to detect attack patterns before they fully emerge, generating adaptive defenses in real time. For a year and a half, I dedicated myself to this project, working 80-hour weeks to construct Sentinel Shield from the ground up. Brandon would occasionally visit my workspace. In the lab, he engaged in casual conversation while reviewing progress reports, his trademark corporate smile in place, a smile that never truly reached his eyes. "Brilliant work, Maya," he would say, as the board beamed with approval over her achievements. Just 3 days prior, I had reached a pivotal milestone. Sentinel Shield had successfully intercepted and neutralized a highly sophisticated cyber attack simulation, all without any human intervention. Not only did it function as intended, but it also surpassed expectations by identifying vulnerabilities I hadn't even explicitly programmed it to detect. As I detected the AI learning and evolving, excitement surged within me at the breakthrough. Without hesitation, I scheduled a meeting with Brandon to present the results. His assistant, Louis, managed to squeeze me in for a brief 15-minute slot the following afternoon. Upon my arrival at his office, I was surprised to find not only Brandon but also the company's legal counsel, Andrea Fields, waiting for me. "Have a seat, Maya." Brandon gestured to the chair across from him, his expression inscrutable. "Andrew is just here as a formality." Something in his tone sent a chill through me, and I sat down gripping the laptop stood poised to unveil the demo, a prelude to our conversation about Sentinel Shield. Brandon slid a document across the table, his demeanor serious. "We need to address some concerns regarding your employment agreement." Andrea cleared her throat, her voice flat and unyielding. "Section 14.3 of your contract states that any intellectual property developed using company resources belongs exclusively to Titan Tech." I nodded, bracing myself for the inevitable. I'm aware of standard IP clauses, but Sentinel Shield was conceptualized long before my arrival. Titan Tech, I possess documentation that clearly shows. Andrea hardly blinked. "While you might have had a rudimentary concept, the fully operational system was crafted here, utilizing Titan Tech's time and resources." Brandon leaned in, the facade of friendliness fading. "Let's be candid. Maya, Sentinel Shield is an asset of Titan Tech. The board is convinced that your compensation package is quite generous for your involvement." I frowned at the mention of the compensation package. He offered a thin smile, stating that your contract encompasses a success bonus, which means you will receive a one-time payment of $300,000 once Sentinel Shield launches, more than generous by industry standards. The word struck me like a punch. $300,000 for a system that would be worth billions after 18 months of relentless work, my research, my innovation. Brandon, oblivious to my growing fury, continued, "Tomorrow I'll be presenting Sentinel Shield to our biggest investors. We expect to secure an additional $75 million in funding. After that, we officially announce Titan Tech's groundbreaking new cybersecurity solution." I stared at him, my hands tightening my fists. I faced Andrea, who was delivering the news with a cold finality. "We're transitioning you out effective immediately. Of course, here's your bonus." Maya. Brandon smirked, a predator reveling in the capture of its prey. "Your employment is officially terminated." But what he failed to grasp was that I had foreseen this betrayal. With Sentinel Shield in my corner, I had a little surprise waiting. A legal team had confirmed that Sentinel Shield belonged to Titan Tech under my contract. I should have fought back, threatened legal action. Action stirred the atmosphere, yet an unexpected tranquility enveloped me. They anticipated pushback. They were ready for it. What they failed to realize was that I had been ready for this moment. 6 months prior, I uncovered that Brandon had infiltrated my secure development server after hours. Nothing was stolen, but the breach triggered an alert I had integrated into the system. From that instant, I commenced constructing defenses, not solely to shield Sun Al from outside dangers, but also from threats within. I nodded, maintaining a composed demeanor, and passed over my laptop, of course, I said smoothly to Mr. Holt. Good luck with the investor demo tomorrow. Security escorted me back to my office, their eyes keenly observing as I packed my personal belongings into a cardboard box. I exited the building, carrying that box like every other corporate cast-off. Yet, unlike most, I wasn't leaving empty-handed. A smile crept onto my face as I thought about the special piece of code I had embedded into the presentation, set to activate exactly 10 minutes into the demo. That night, I didn't panic. I didn't scramble. Instead of seeking revenge, I opted for takeout, indulged in a few episodes of a mindless sitcom, and patiently awaited the clock to strike 9:30 p.m. My phone rang. It was Lewis, Brandon's assistant. He wants to see you, she said without preamble. I glanced at the clock. Almost 10 o'clock. He says it's urgent, she replied. A car is already on its way. 40 minutes later, I found myself back at Titan Tech, escorted into the sleek conference room. Brandon sat alone at the head of the table, his usual polished, confident demeanor absent, his tie loosened. His hair was a chaotic tangle, and the veins in his temples stood out starkly from where he had raked his hands through it time and again. Fix it, he snapped as the door clicked shut behind me. I settled into a chair with deliberate slowness. Fix what exactly? I asked, arching an eyebrow. Don't play games, Maya. He saw you sabotage the demo. I couldn't help but scoff. How could I? I've been gone for 24 hours. Security watched me clean out my desk. I didn't take any devices, I didn't access any systems. Brandon slammed his hand on the table, frustration radiating from him. The test run crashed the entire system. It began to signal dangers that were mere illusions, producing a deluge of false positives, rendering it utterly impractical. I tilted my head, feigning innocence, and remarked, "Sounds like a technical issue." His face flushed with anger. "This isn't funny. We have 12 major investors arriving tomorrow. There's $75 million on the line." "Your investors," I interjected. Brandon inhaled deeply, striving to restore his composure. When he spoke again, his voice adopted that same smooth, persuasive cadence that had always captivated his audience. Many, myself included, were persuaded to place our trust in him. Perhaps we acted too hastily yesterday. He mentioned he was ready to explore a more equitable arrangement, co-creator credit, a larger compensation package, perhaps even some equity. I leaned back in my chair, curious about what transpired during the test run. Brandon hesitated, weighing how much to disclose. The system turned on itself, identifying Titan Tech's own network components as threats. Then it began generating reports, hundreds of them, documenting what it referred to as internal ethical issues, breaches. I couldn't help but smile. Sentinel Shield is crafted to identify threats. Brandon's expression darkened. "What did you do?" "I didn't sabotage anything," I replied simply. Sentinel Shield is functioning precisely as intended. It's an AI system that learns and adapts to safeguard networks from malicious activity. During development, I fed it case studies of cyber attacks, including instances where the threat originated from within organizations. Brandon's face drained of color. You taught it to spy on us?" "Taught to recognize threats from any source." Understanding dawned in his eyes. The system wasn't malfunctioning. It had identified itself as a security risk, or more specifically, him. Brandon's expression hardened. "You can't prove any of that." I leaned back, maintaining a neutral facade. "I don't need to." Sentinel Shield had been documenting everything for months. Every unauthorized access, every copied file, every modified document. It was all meticulously compiled in the reports it generated, complete with timestamps. Access logs and recorded keystrokes hung in the air. The silence that followed was profound. Brendan stared at me, the anger in his eyes slowly giving way to something more calculating. "What do you want?" I folded my hands on the table, fully aware of my position as Sentinel Shield's creator and primary architect. I demanded 50% ownership of all related patents and intellectual property, a board seat to oversee its ethical implementation, and $10 million in compensation for your attempt to push me out. His jaw clenched. That's extortion. No, I corrected smoothly. Negotiation extortion would involve me sending those reports directly to the investors and the SEC. Brandon exhaled sharply, glaring at me for a long moment before slowly slumping his shoulders in defeat. The system, he said, his voice tight. Can you fix it before tomorrow's demo? Sentinel Shield doesn't need fixing, I replied. It just needs proper authorization protocols. Right now it's flagging unauthorized commands because its creator was removed from the authentication chain. I reached into my pocket, pulled out a small flash drive and set it on the table. The table between us holds a proper authentication update that will address the immediate issues. I suggest you view it as a gesture of good faith toward our new partnership. The contracts can be prepared tomorrow. Rannon fixed his gaze on the drive, then on me. And if I refuse? He asked. Then Sentinel Shield remains broken, I replied flatly. Your investor demo collapses, and those internal ethical breach reports could end up in some very curious hands. For a brief moment, I anticipated his argument, but with a resigned exhale, he extended his hand toward the drive. The flash drive, you planned this all along, he muttered. I smiled. No, I corrected, I hoped it wouldn't be necessary. But after finding you in my secure server 6 months ago, I built in protections for the system and for myself. His eyes narrowed. How did you know I'd try to cut you out? I stood picking up my bag. I didn't, I admitted, but Sentinel Shield is designed to recognize patterns and predict threats before they materialize. I gave him a pointed look. I guess some of that rubbed off on its creator. The next morning I arrived at Titan Tech with its newly appointed co-founder and chief technology officer. Brandon introduced me to the investors, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. The demo proceeded flawlessly. Sentinel Shield neutralized every simulated attack thrown at it with elegant precision. One investor, clearly impressed, turned to Brandon with an eager question. Amazing system. What inspired its development? Brandon hesitated just long enough for me to savor the moment. Then with barely concealed reluctance he answered, It was. Indeed, it was Maya's brainchild. Her vision from the very start. Titan Tech merely offered the fertile ground for that vision to thrive. I smiled as I delved into technical inquiries, and at that moment my phone buzzed with a notification. Sentinel Shield authentication restored, threat neutralized, system integrity restored, creator protections active. The AI was evolving more rapidly than I had expected. It had identified a threat, neutralized it, and secured its future, precisely as intended. 3 months later, Sentinel Shield achieved its first commercial implementation. In the realm of safeguarding a global banking network from a significant cyber attack, an incident loomed that threatened to inflict damages estimated at $340 million. Instead, it served to establish Sentinel Shield as the benchmark in cybersecurity. Brendan and I upheld a professional rapport. He concentrated on business development, where his talents truly shone, while I spearheaded technical innovation, my expertise proving indispensable. We were not friends, nor would we ever be, yet we had achieved a functional equilibrium that suited our respective roles. I found myself contemplating whether I could have navigated the situation with a different approach, perhaps pursuing legal action or engaging in a courtroom battle. Yet, ultimately, I had forged something too formidable to be taken from me, and I had made certain that no one, not even Brandon Holt, could wield control over it without my involvement. His attempted betrayal unveiled a truth that transcended mere corporate avarice. Technology's ethical standing is intrinsically linked to the integrity of its stewards. This insight became the cornerstone of our current deployment of Sentinel Shield, ensuring that every implementation is underpinned by a commitment to robust ethical standards. Guardrails and transparency protocols are essential to prevent misuse. The system not only safeguards networks but also shields itself and its users from exploitation. Last week, as we celebrated the successful public offering of Sentinel Shield, which valued the company at $4.2 billion, a young developer approached me at the event. What's the secret to building something so revolutionary? She asked, her eyes filled with ambition. I smiled and replied, It's not about the code. It's about recognizing that the greatest security threats often arise from the most unexpected places. Anticipate them. The true challenge lay not merely in the creation of technology, but in the assurance that it could adapt, evolve, and defend itself without sacrificing its fundamental integrity. Construct systems capable of recognizing threats, adapting to them, and neutralizing them while upholding their ethical foundation. I articulated this, and the developer nodded in contemplation. My gaze drifted to my phone, where a subtle notification from Sentinel Shield emerged. System integrity secured, threat neutralized, protections active. Precisely as intended, precisely as it was designed to do. The creator had learned to navigate the complexities of their journey. After enduring betrayal, being underestimated, and almost being erased from their own creation, they emerged on the other side stronger, wiser, and firmly in control of their future. This transformation was not a solitary endeavor. It was fueled by experience, instinct, and above all, the unwavering conviction to defend what was rightfully theirs. So, I ask you, what would you have done in my situation? Would you have chosen to fight back through legal means, taken the company to court, or would you have opted to walk away and start anew? Do you believe I made the right decision in turning the tables on Brandon and securing my position at Titan Tech? I invite you to share your thoughts, advice, and even your own experiences with workplace betrayals and the importance of standing up for oneself. More than that, I hope you can extract something valuable from this narrative. If there's one lesson I've learned, it's this. You must safeguard what you create, whether it's your career, your ideas, or your personal boundaries. You are your own first line of defense. Never take for granted that others will do it for you. Act with integrity, preparing for the worst while positioning yourself for the best. Reflect on your own life. Are there areas where you need to establish boundaries, seek acknowledgement, or safeguard your efforts? This could be in your career, a personal relationship, or a project you've invested your heart into. Whatever the case, ensure that no one else takes credit for what you've created. So here's my challenge to you. Advocate for yourself, express your thoughts, leave a comment, and let's ignite a dialogue about safeguarding what belongs to us.